What's going on, everybody? This is Dominique from Dominique Magazine, sitting here coming to you with another video. We don't do videos too often, but we're going to change that very soon with our YouTube channel. I'm sitting here at our office in the conference room trying to when I get meet a lot of my guys from social media. Got brother Hondo Soloman sitting here with us. We'll talk about common sense when it comes to men. Last time I sat down and talked with you all, maybe a couple of months ago, I had Rico Rivers of the now defunct Rico Rivers show. Rico is a licensed mental health professional up in the Dallas, Texas area. So we talk a lot about mental health and just things from a Black man's point of view. Last time we did a video, I sat with Miss Danielle Mitchell of Average Black Girl. She gave lots of career advice. So as you guys know, we do solutions around here. I know there's a lot of chance that you allow you to vent, get your frustrations out, talk about different things. And a lot of people, you never talk about game and getting women, honestly, because so many other channels do that. But today I want to talk about it from a unique perspective. Hence the title is Courting, Bitching, Dating Smart. And they got my title hidden, so I can't really see exactly what it was, but you guys will see it as you're watching this video in your self-appointed time. What's going on, Hondo?
Hey, brother. It's good to see you, man.
Yeah, great to see you as well.
Yeah, in fact, this is the first time we've actually met in person, so I'm honored to be here. And definitely appreciate you taking time out of your schedule, because I know, you were kind of locked in doing your thing, and I'm just traveling through the city. So thank you.
I'm glad you let me know as well, because one of the things I like to do is when people are in the city, I know how you get a lot of these people, they type one thing, but live something totally different. And a lot of people that say they met me, in fact, everybody was met me when I said, dude, you're consistent. And you're consistent as well. To where a lot of people create personas that don't really match what they are online, because this computer or these phones give people a whole new set of courage they would never have in public. And so I look at a topic that I talk about all the time, which is leveling up while you're dating. And I tell people, there's a big hoopla going on right now, and it's kind of got a lot of the black male commentators kind of divided, but it's not no knockout, drag out fighting. See, black men can have disagreements. Ain't nobody making 12 diss videos and all that, but we go from 50-50 versus patriarchy, or traditional, as I like to say, because I know y'all hate the word patriarchy, get you in your feelings. Now, what do you think about traditional versus 50-50?
Well, the 50-50 system is actually fairly new on the world scene. You didn't really find it, even when women were property owners, when women would receive inheritances from their fathers, things of that nature, when they had to take over for the brothers and other male relatives in the family. We're talking about historically worldwide. Generally, women still had a rank below men in the society. Even if they could hold the same position, men and women still understood that there was some type of demarcation in a natural ranking system. Okay, so when we go into how we deal with each other in, say, for instance, we're in the United States at this moment, people say, well, I want a 50-50 relationship. You never heard that until a few decades ago.
Right. Especially with second wave feminism, to where you started seeing, especially in the black community, the breakup of the family, to where females became it wasn't the male head of household, it was a female head of household, where you had the woman raising the children. And so she had to do what it takes, as feminists love to say, oh, well, when the man, somebody had to pick up the pants, which y'all wasn't going to do with us, and that's not necessarily true, but that's a whole other topic for a whole other day. But it is relatively new, because a lot of our grandparents, in some cases your parents, depending on how old you are, they did a lot of that, to where it was strictly, pops made more money than grandma or moms. Pretty much he ran the house. Pretty much he was the disciplinarian. It was always wait till your father gets home, or let's see what your father has to say. Very rarely did you see the woman making a decision by herself, unless it was something that was very basic or minor. But you knew back in the day, making decisions he had made. Because we're not too far removed from to the 1980s, where a woman could not get a credit card at home. A man had to sign for a credit card. Where it was either the father or the husband. But that law has since changed. And a lot of people will say, well, men are just upset about the freedoms and perks that women get. No, we're not upset. Our thing is we need to stop moving the goalposts. If you want 50-50, and that is your right. There's a lot of guys that want 50-50. There's a lot of women that want 50-50. I believe 50-50 people should date each other. But here's the problem. You're 50-50, but you want your mate to be traditional. You can't be a 50-50 man, but you still want to come home, get your dick sucked, have the house clean, have your plate fed, have the kids tended to. All you got to do is just sit here and just pat the dog and just give orders.
Well, what ends up happening is when those expectations are foisted upon men, the society at large begins to take that on and then places that inside of a non-householding relationship. So you see it in the workplace. Well, I should have this just because I'm a woman. It's like, wait a minute. Men know that when we step in front of each other, either you have earned the right to gain an audience. Like, for instance, you told me that you have been following my work for some time. So I had to earn my way into gaining audience with you. It wasn't just like, hey, man, I'm coming through. I had to have some type of track record. And you were able to say, well, this brother's working solid, and you've been able to test some of those things out yourself. So when we talk about 50-50 within primarily sexual relations between men and women, when you're dating or when in marriage, it doesn't work statistically, because the countries where you have that type of thing, primarily in the Anglosphere, those societies have a low marriage and high divorce rate. They also have a large single mother population, and they have a very large population of men who are not married. Now that's trouble, because what ends up happening is that the violent acts that occur from male on female and male on male are increased, because you have more men about 18. Generally, the accepted range is 18 to 34. You see higher crime among those men. We can talk about Spain. We can talk about England and the other places in the UK. We can talk about the United States. Though that age group, 18 to 34-year-old males, are more likely to commit crimes. When you look in these more traditional societies, or at least the societies that have some vestige of patriarchy, we're talking about 100 to 0% here. You see a more economic stability across the board. We're talking about financial, talking about the family structure, first of all, is stronger. You see a higher marriage and lower divorce rate. Among some people, you still see no divorce. In fact, it's such a stigma, for instance, among traditional Israelites, traditional Muslims. When you divorce, that's still a very shameful thing for the men and the women, but even more so for the women. Why? Because statistically, at least in the Anglosphere in general, again, this is official stats. When the women are allowed to just go and divorce, they end up divorcing for very frivolous and arbitrary reasons. It's rarely for sexual, emotional abuse. In other words, the man is doing his job, and all of a sudden this woman is out with somebody else. She's not punished. When the divorce happens because of infidelity, she's not punished. So this 50-50 thing actually harms everybody, but it actually gives women not a matriarchal power, because matriarchies are organized. It gives them a gynocratic power that's undeserved. Okay. So in a patriarchal society where the men make the final decisions, you gave several examples. Again, you see that higher marriage, lower divorce rate. You also see a more stable society. Those societies actually have lasted longer than the ones in the Anglosphere, which are only about 300 years old.
When you think about these cultures,
hopefully that makes sense.
Well, it makes a lot of sense where Black people lead out of wedlock births. Hispanics are number 2. White people are number 3. Asians are still at the dead last, very bottom. So some numbers I saw, and I don't have the source for it. I hate speaking without attributing my sources. There was a study that was conducted that 18% of Asian women are single mothers. 30%, 18%. And that's still very low compared to the 30% of white women. 54, 55-ish for Hispanic women, and in the low 70s for Black women of single motherhood rates. And now, mind you, they took this data and compared it to a 40-year time period, to where white women had 10% back in the 60s of single motherhood rate. Asians had nearly 2%. We was kind of already on the upswing in the 60s with 30, 40%. So we was kind of, so it was already something going wrong at that time. Now, of course, we can attribute to the whole daddy's, mama's baby's daddy's baby, Papa's a Rolling Stone. When you think about some of the lyrics of the songs and some of the family secrets.
They were very truthful, but it's almost like they encoded with the music. They gave you the beat and the music behind it, things like that. And they flipped the words to the point where these messages were hidden. They were actually teaching you what was going on. Yeah, that's the whole point of song anyway, tradition.
Yeah, that's what it was doing. It was giving you a heads up, or I don't care what the others think or what they say, just be good to me. That song, people talked about a man who was committing infidelity, where she knew what was going on, but as long as she was taking her business at home, she didn't care.
Well, I call that the family down the street phenomenon. This is why, of course, my platform is polygamy, and I talk about that a lot. I've even met people whose fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers, they had 2 families, they had like 30 children. Or they had, they might have 5 women and 30 or 40 children. I've heard about a man in Alabama who had 60 some odd children. And he had, I think, 20 women. And most of them, he was still with them up until the year that he passed. This was actually the maintenance guy at an apartment complex I lived in, at a townhouse complex, that I lived in. He's sharing that with me and one of my brothers. He grew up in that system. So the thing is, you get also more children. We're talking about this. You get more children. You also get a tighter leadership structure when you have the man making the decisions. Okay. In every group dynamic, whether it's your business, whether it's the military, whether you're on a police force, a corporation, every context we step into, there is a leader who will naturally emerge. And those who are honest and humble, they will say, oh, yeah, that guy's in charge. That guy's in charge. You've probably been in that situation where they look to you and say, oh, you know what? He's in charge. They won't say it. They just kind of acquiesce to your leadership.
Because you take charge of leadership. Correct. To where despite the liberation and the I'm every woman, it's all in me, go sister, go. Women still want dates paid for. Women still want providing. Women still want protection. To where you never hear a married woman crying about lack of protection. Everybody uses that Malcolm X line of the Black woman is the least respected, most unprotected. And you hear a lot of Black feminists and even swirlers will love saying that line. And of course, in the Black masculinist movement, people say that's really the Black man. Because Black women get the protection of white supremacy, whereas Black men don't. Because they want us gone.
We will American Black men, or ABM as I call them, or the average Black male, depending on the context you're talking about. The ABM, we don't really have the luxury of automatic friendships from the time we're conceived until the time we pass. We don't have that luxury. We have to work harder to build bonds, at least in the Anglosphere. Now, me living overseas, I see that we actually get a lot of respect when we go overseas. Most of us who go overseas marry. And we marry within a year. It doesn't take us a long time to get married because other people respect us, you see. And they actually respect us when we are patriarchal. For example, I told you about my consort, my primary consort. And I remember her, after our family meeting, so I had to go meet their family. We were talking about that too earlier. I went to meet their family. And when I stepped outside, I guess she was conferring with her family. And they told her, they said, listen, Hondo is your husband now, so you have to do it whatever he says. They told her that because she came back outside and told me what they said. Then she went back, then her father came back outside. He grabbed my arm, he said, Hondo, whatever you need, you tell Papa. He said, my daughter is yours. He said, just treat her right. He said, whatever you say, that's what's gonna go on. So they still have an understanding that it's respectable when a man is in charge. Now, a lot of people would argue with us about what these points we're making, right? But let's look at it for a second. Women don't respect men who don't take charge.
Don't respect broke men either.
They don't respect broke men. That's part of us taking charge before we get to women. But men also don't respect women who are in charge. We don't respect that. And it's a natural thing. It's not like it's mandated. It's a natural thing.
And that's true. That's why you see a lot of these things where people argue that women who are in elected office have a lot more trouble getting the buy-in a lot of times. That's why you see a lot of women, even in corporate, when I used to work in corporate, a lot of women who were in charge, majority of the support staff was male. Because it was the men that had to go get the buy-in for her. Because smart women in corporate knew they had to play chess. So they had to get men who could go carry the agenda. But
their advisors are usually men. The boards, most boards, corporate board members are men. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a reason for this. Even when we look at the queens, you know, in history, who were, you know, they were the primary ruler. Who are their advisors? Men. Who was most of their personal guard? Most of the time, those men. Yeah. Who made up the armies that those women commanded? Most times, it was men. So men have always enforced those rare times where women are at the top. Men are always the ones to enforce and to advise. It's men.
Yeah.
So all we have to do is look at what's been happening for thousands, or if you're so inclined, millions of years. All we have to do is look at that. We don't have to try to reinvent the wheel to understand the gender.
Because even you look at Mayor Poe, I forgot her name, is it Carolyn or somebody from Baltimore, Mayor Bottoms. Then we have the new mayor who's a black woman in Charlotte. You know, when you look at these black women who are in charge, and you go look at the executive cabinet, you're going to find a lot of men. When you see them in public, you want to see them surrounded by men. Actually, unless they want to do the symbolic stuff and have all the women police all surrounded there. But you basically you have the big guy with a little earpiece in his ear.
Most police officers are what? Men. Most soldiers are men. Okay, most truck drivers, all of the things that make most countries run is run by men. And women are serving as auxiliary, mostly auxiliary positions. Nurses, most nurses are what? Women. Okay. Most doctors are not women. Most doctors are still men. I'm talking about DOs or doctors of osteopathic medicine, MDs. Most of them are primarily men. Although you're seeing an uptick, of course, with women going to these schools.
And that's the whole thing with that, to where you're starting to see the dynamics shifting. And this is what this generation is going to end up writing. The generation behind us is going to write the history book about what does this look like. And I think what it is in a lot of these groups, you definitely see, that's why I tell guys, you can't fall into this trap of the 50-50. Because most women say they want that, but there's clips of videos you can look on YouTube. Women hate that. Like if you go to Madame Noir, for example, there was an article that came out last year was Black men are contributors because we don't expect them to provide. And I read that piece because, and the piece based on selling employees for that website, which says a lot. It's not like the root is pulled shot their ass, and all of a sudden it's like, because I was pissed off today on writing something about Black men. But it's on there, it's like, okay, when you get into a relationship, they asked the woman, when you get into a relationship with a Black man, do you look to him to be a provider? And a lot of Black women had said no. This is some internal data they did. He's like, I know that I'm going to do 50-50. I know because of how he's held back and because of the system that we're living in with racism and discrimination. Or, you get a lot of women say, well, my mom was strong and I know I don't want to be, and I saw how the men in her life let her down. I just can't be caught like that. So you're saying,
well, what's the solution? The solution goes back to those same women choosing the proper man, which means they have to talk with their fathers, have the father meet the man. You see, it keeps spinning back to patriarchy, the need for patriarchy. So those things would be solved. They wouldn't get, I guess, economically destitute men. They wouldn't have them to choose from or rather, number one, if they had their fathers or the fathers unavailable, any capable male relatives to help them choose a suitor for a husband, and polygamy. Because polygamous men, as we talked about earlier, polygamous men are capable. I mean, we usually self-employed, usually entrepreneurs, okay? We usually have stuff that we can get the women to add onto it. We're not destitute. So this is everything that we're saying, the solution keeps coming back to primarily the act of fathers engaging in patriarchy. That's the first thing, even beyond polygamy.
And even when you look at the codes of conduct in other races, to where Black men, we've gotten the stigma of being the chubby chasers. Right. And, in other groups and other nationalities, those men don't deal with the fact that, we embrace it. We made rap songs about it. We cheer them on to the point the biggest beautiful. But it comes to the point, even a lot of this feminist ranting, which that's what it is, it's a bunch of ranting, they want the patriarchy. They feel that because there's no patriarchy, they would never say it that way, it's why we do what we do. Because case in point, you want a man to pay the bills, that's patriarchy. You want a man to pay for the dates, that's patriarchy. You want a man to put his life on the line for you, that's patriarchy. You want a man to open that door for you, that's patriarchy. You want a man to sit there and make sure that everything is good, that's patriarchy.
Walk between she and the street if they're going down the block.
Right, and there's a certain
for
protection. Because you see the little memes on Facebook that says, okay, the man's on the inside of the sidewalk, the woman's on the outside of the sidewalk. What's wrong with this picture? And you see all these women going in, oh yeah, just the third. I just jump on and say, well, y'all. I said, how many of y'all are anti-patriarch? Oh, everybody said, oh, I won't do the patriarch. But that's a patriarchal move. Because you want the perks of patriarchy, but you don't want to do the work for patriarchy. And that's the same thing I would even say about men. Like, you cannot expect a woman, and this is where Damon Young from Very Smart Brothers argued the point totally wrong, because he was trying to woman-splain on behalf of women by men.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've seen that a few times.
And the thing about it was, I tell men all the time, stop bitching about these women you choose. You chose that woman. You knew the bitch was crazy when you got with her, but men had this whole thing, I will tame her, or once I put it on her, she gonna do this, and you gotta, and you're doing this whole, I call it the cleanup man. And the cleanup man is much different from the vetting man. Case in point, I was on the Hondo this earlier. In my courting and vetting, I want to see a full body picture. I don't want to see I don't want to see your breast. Fuck that. I want to see what stand up, take a picture. Put your computer back and go take a picture and stuff. Go do a quick live real quick, because that's gonna let me know, are you fat? Are you short? Or what have you? Go sit in the mirror and go take a selfie real quick. And it gives yourself some good, like, don't go in the dark closet and say, oh, here you go. Because that way you can see things that you want to do to help your woman.
That's the beauty of technology in this age we're in, is that there's no more excuse for you being surprised by the way somebody looks. And that includes us too.
Right.
We were even talking about how we take care of ourselves, how, we talked about this for a while today, off camera. We were discussing what we each eat, how we maintain our physiques. We're talking about exercise regimen. Then I mentioned getting a bicycle. You say, you confirmed something that I've been thinking about. These type of things allow them to, because women, and I know a lot of guys don't like it, but women like a decent looking guy. They like us to be in shape. They like us to be healthy. Now you mentioned something about the protections of patriarchy that patriarchy offers, and some of the women not really wanting that. And again, see, you notice we're not saying anything negative about women. We're talking about all of the standards that men have to have. And women will always follow men. So if most men, the majority of men were on point, women will start to track toward that. We don't have to really say anything negative about women, because women are just going to be women. They automatically rebel when there is a dearth of powerful men in a society. That's another thing that I found in my studies. Now, just to give you an example, okay? So when I was home, I was in the Philippines. We were going into the market, and we bought a lot of fruit and vegetables, and we had a bunch of bags. We got a lot of food, and I remember we started out with a couple of bags. So my consort, she carried that. By the time we scooped up a whole bunch of food, we had probably 5 or 6 bags, these plastic bags. And I told her, I said, here, give me this half, and you take the other half. She snatched the bags out of my hand, brother, and looked at me. She scrunched her face, said, no. She said, no. We got on the bike and we left. She carried that. She carried all the groceries. I didn't have nothing in my hands. She opens my doors. She opens my doors for me. All the things that we do here for women, she does that for me, and my other women do that for me when I'm home. So I'm used to a certain standard. So now what I've noticed, that I don't have to complain about women anymore, because I already have my cipher that is based on what is natural to men and women. So they're the ones watching out for me, and I protect them by making sure that the household has structure, order, and discipline. You see, so now I can tell from experience what it's supposed to be like.
And when there's structure and discipline, chaos cannot thrive. Because, people love structure and discipline. Because they know that things go much more smoothly throughout that. Because when you mentioned this about the women, about how she carried the bags and stuff, like when I see guys.
This is about 40 pounds, by the way. This is about 40 pounds of groceries. and she didn't want me carrying anything. We were walking around the streets, and she just held on to him.
I believe that because I mean, I happen to wear with certain groups of women to where like I like to clean. I was a janitor one time. Many jobs I've had in my life. So if I see this table dirty, I would go get the spray and start wiping down. I'm thinking I'm gonna help out. I'm able about. I've had them to take the spray and the rag out my hands. And, you sit, and they go wipe it down. You like it like that?
So you're used to a certain standards. What you say, used to a certain level of activity.
Yeah.
That now it's giving you this mindset, like you've seen women in their natural state, and you've been in your natural state before.
Yeah, I have. I've had them where I remember I was meeting with this is my ex. At the Kroger that was by our house. I was in the north side of the city at the time. It had a little cafe type thing. You go get the drinks and, they had food there. So I was meeting somebody who lived in that area. We was talking some business. I had a laptop over there and everything. She went in, poured my drink. I didn't ask her this. This is what she did. She like, you want sweet tea? And what would you like to drink? So she went and got the drinks and everything. And then she said, I'm going to go get a magazine. And, and I'm going to go sit over there. If you need anything, just let me know. And then I was looking for something in my bag, something to write with. She went in her purse and handed me a pen. See, that's the stuff I tell you. Like, I've had women to do things like that for me. I know a lot of guys have never had their plates fixed. I've gone to different, because of the work I do in the community. I have gone to so many community block parties. I'm over there. I'm going to go get me a plate. I've had women tell me to sit my ass down. We got you. We told you want. Here you go. This is gluten free. We know you ain't got no bread. Here's some stuff on there. Or they're not unsure. They'll ask me and they'll go fix it. So I'm like, I tell people, I empathize with some of these brothers, but I can't really feel too bad for them when I tell you the secrets of what you need to do.
Well, the thing is, when we provide these principles, this is stuff we should be getting paid, to provide.
This is the last year y'all getting this shit for free. So there's a reason why I'm doing this, because see, there's some things I'm still do for free. The content on the magazine, DominiqueMag.com will always be free. There will be certain free events. There will be certain things on social media. But the real game, as the hood folks always say, the games be sold, not told. So, that's why I'm trying to make sure I'm leveled up. So I can be the walking example. I'm already walking example in a lot of things now, but I want to get to a higher level. Hondo's at a higher level with that, because when we talk about polygamy, and yes, we'll talk about that in Dominique Magazine. There's like, I'll be going to talk about, black men marrying each other, because I believe in putting everything out there what black men are doing, because we're going to run a whole gamut quad. And even with the whole interracial marriage thing, we'll talk about that. You want black love, we'll talk about that. You want to be Midtown, we've got something for you as well. So I bring all that up because I want to be able to say, hey, I have subject matter experts. Not people who just look at theory and say, hey, that looks good. That's how it should work. When you're talking to Hondo mentions what he's doing in polygamy. He's not one of these folks that got 8 baby mamas and all of a sudden he has a defaulted, he has what I call a defaulted polygamy, where he's pretty much, he ain't riding with those women. It's just, you just had a baby by each one of those women. I think that's what a lot of people start saying. I hear dusty dudes say, oh, they want polygamy because you don't want to do this and this and this. But even when it comes to traditionalism or patriarchy, if you're not putting up if you're not building nothing, read these women's complaints. Some of them are legitimate. A lot of it's bullshit, but some of it's legit. If you read the writing on the wall and stop going to these spaces, shout out to Obsidian Media Network for this. Obsidian always says, fellas, when we go to these women's spaces, what do I always say? Repeat after me. We go there to observe and report. We're here to watch the footage, read the article, look at the comment section, but we do not engage with those people. We do not rip them a new asshole in that comment section. We come back to our space and we discuss it here where it is controlled. So they bring that shit over here. We're going to throw that shit right out the front door.
And, men are starting to do that. I'm starting to notice, I've been away from social media for some time. I've kind of dip in and out maybe every couple of weeks, something, but I have noticed that when I come back, men have become a bit more organized in our thought process regarding the whole gender war. And it is a war. I actually have a book. I have a book that I'm working on. It's probably going to come out the next 2 years after Polygamy as Economic Warfare, which is my next book on polygamy. Y'all watch for that, by the way. Hope you don't mind the shameless.
Oh, that's fine. That's what we had these platforms for.
But
so we got people with experts here. I'm just talking to people I met at the bus stop. We don't do that here. That's what World of Street shows. That's what you want, but this is not it.
Yeah, so I have a book that I'm writing on basically a chronicle of the gender war. Okay, this is thousands of years old, and is manifested really the same way under different societies. And societies, you look at the Roman Empire, you look at the Moorish Empire, we can actually and other empires, we can make a strong case for the fall being from an abundance of female energy being utilized. Okay, we can actually make a very, very strong case for that. So you have to maintain a patriarchal order and a structure. So
if you don't maintain that, then what happens, you have the disasters you have now to where, the black gender war plays out in front of everybody because black folks want to put their stuff on Front Street.
Yeah.
You're looking at things that are happening overseas. You're looking at things where white men are starting to have issues with their women, where white men are starting to embrace the big cow banner louder than black men.
And they've even credited us, Black American black men, ABM, to being the source of red pill philosophy. Many of them have acknowledged that we were the first ones to really do that en masse. Of course, this was a few decades ago that we were actually still like that.
Right.
Where we dealt with women in a harsh manner when they presented dysfunction to us. Not just day to day, but just when they would present dysfunction, we had a habit of shutting that down.
Right. And that's where the whole thing, you're starting to see that now. Because I tell guys, and I say in the men's regard to seed group that started by Jay Norman of Thoughts Men Aren't Supposed to Think. Check it out on Facebook. It's called Guard Your Seed. And the one thing I love about that group is Jay says I'm too harsh because I kind of run it.
It's called Thoughts That Men Are Not Supposed to Think.
It's called Guard Your Seed. The fan page is called Thoughts Men Aren't Supposed to Think. And he has a lot of witty sayings on there. It's kind of basically getting men to think more critically. And it has spawned a spinoff called Thoughts Women Aren't Supposed to Think, of getting them to look at some things as well too. And I tell you, in the group, we're able to talk without women in the room, because we want this to be a man's forum. And I told them, I don't want the simps in here. I don't want male feminists in here. And unfortunately, the men who we have to balance are black men.
They're the enforcers that I was speaking of in a gynocratic society. Those are the types of men who will defend women at all costs. Now, it's one thing if you're defending women against something like treachery. Right. From other men. That's patriarchy.
That's patriarchy. Patriarchy. Out there getting her ass kicked. We go out there and stop that shit and deal with him and make sure she's okay. Right. That's patriarchy.
Patriarchy actually protects women because it keeps them from being maligned and abused by treacherous men. But of course, we have less of those types of men, the defenders. We have less vanguard now. So when we talk about patriarchy, it seems like a weird concept. That's one reason it seems like a weird concept. It's probably the main reason.
And that was done on purpose because, see, we're dealing with a society that it started to grow up in broken families now. Broken families wasn't that commonplace back in the day. Now you're seeing a 50% divorce rate here in the United States. We have a concept that you was mentioning earlier. The appropriate title for that is called no-fault divorce, where a woman can file, anybody can file for a divorce. There's just really no reason. I'm tired of it. And that's permissible in court. And I tell a lot of these guys, I say, okay, you all are saying, well, marriage is bad, but guess what? Most of the elected officials in the country are men. Now, women are starting to make inroads, and they still got.
And most of those men are married. And also, we need to make sure we talk about that because marriage equals patriarchy by default. People try to redefine it in various ways, but marriage is the direct manifestation of patriarchal order and structure.
Right, and that's why I laugh when guys say, "Oh, marriage is a piece of paper." I say, "So is your paycheck. So is your driver's license. So is the money in your pocket. That's all paper." But you still go to work every morning. You still drive that vehicle, and you still pull out that money to buy them Jordan shoes. So, but see, you got to protect your assets because in most states, if you have a baby out of wedlock, you have no rights to fatherhood. The power is in the woman's hands. The woman doesn't even have to list you on the birth certificate. You have to go to the power of legitimizing your child, which would be a battle in itself. And heaven forbid she think you ain't the father, because that's where the old saying goes: beta alpha fucks beta bucks. You make the pretty baby with alpha, but you get the beta over here that's ready to be the thing up there.
And that's another thing. I don't know how we missed this, but single motherhood is is both the child of gynocracy and it is also the brainchild. It is the source of all societal dysfunction. I can actually prove that. Single motherhood is the source of all societal dysfunction. All of it.
Because there's some data out here that states that I think they looked at various county jails and the prison systems that most of the offenders came from single mother households.
Yep. And that's quoted in a book by the late Dr. Daniel Amnius called The Case for Father Custody. The Case for Father Custody. And you can get that free as a PDF online. Great book. He goes through just about every state and shows the same data. It's every state. They even quoted, I think the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office, he even quoted them, some stats they had some years back. DeKalb or Fulton County, because Atlanta is in Fulton. Atlanta is partly DeKalb and partly Fulton County. Yeah. And he talked about that. And I think it was like in the jails are filled, I think it's like 85% were raised by single moms, the people who are in and out of jail, the juvenile delinquency, the grades dropping. I mean, all of it goes back to that. But see, single motherhood en masse, it only occurs in where women have more freedoms, economic freedoms. I'm going to say that again. The more freedom women have in a society, the worse the society and the faster that society degrades. Usually takes 2 or 3 decades. So again, this is not, we're not being negative against women because we both know some great women, but those women, by and large, are married. Yeah. I don't know any single women who are functional because your nature is reflected in male-female principle. So once you go outside of that structure, again, the heavens provide structure. Just like, okay, so a lot of people are biblicist. You know, when the prophet Jesus, he says that, and I'm not a Christian, but I know the book. When Jesus says, as it is in heaven, so it will be on earth, that's actually an occult principle. That's how we're supposed to operate. So heaven is the male principle, the earth is the female principle. The heavens oversees the earth. I mean, I could take you to every religious scripture. I could take you to what we observe daily. I could take you to data, because that's why we keep talking about these statistics.
That's why I love data, because it shuts down the argument.
It shuts down the argument.
And that's one thing that the Black masculinist movement, Dr. T. Hassan Johnson, you all hear me say that a lot. People have mistakenly attributed that movement to me. That is not my movement. That is done by Dr. T. Hassan Johnson. I consider myself an unofficial scholar of the movement. I'm doing my part to raise the awareness. And I mentioned these days, I said, fellas, a lot of this stuff, I think for what we're doing, we may not get to smell our flowers on real life. And I know that's bad, but we have to leave the blueprint in place to show that we're turning this stuff around, because we can't keep punting the football, kicking the can in the corner. Because we complain about what civil rights didn't do when they mistakes, but if we don't start fixing these mistakes and what we're not doing, the generation behind us is going to have nothing but utter contempt for us about what we didn't do. Because I've seen things to where, a lot of children are inheriting nothing. A lot of kids don't have trust funds. A lot of kids are being thrown out of the house at 18. They're thinking college is a great equalizer to where, you end up working for somebody who got less education than you.
Only in a dysfunctional society do you throw the men and the women out at age 18 when they're not married. Yeah. Only dysfunctional societies engage in that. You're supposed to stay home until you marry. And in some cases, the man and the woman will get married and the woman will move into the man's family's home. Now, I've seen cases where it's the other way around, but the woman should be coming with the man. It's all so backward. And when we present these ideas and we tell people, like, listen, the societies that still function economically, they do things totally different than you. So when you see that something has not worked for decades, you need to try something else. You can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and hope that it gets better by us talking.
Because you got to put in the work. And that's one thing where I like movements such as what Nicole Michelle is doing with the interview movement, what you're doing with your movement, what Obsidian's doing, O'Shea Duke Jackson, T. Hassan Johnson, Dr. Tommy Curry. There's a lot of people who are doing bits and pieces of that. Because I tell brothers, and I know I'm probably get some hate mail for this. Um, in other cultures, that 50-50 shit ain't cutting it. That's unless they're extremely, especially for those that want the international people. When I say international, that's a booming term for whatever nationality that you, from Algeria to Bolivia to Belize or whatever. Unless these people are extremely westernized, as I hear people say, I like to use the term Americanized to kind of really point out where this is coming from, they still want the man to be in his traditional function. And that's why I don't believe in dating broke. That's why I don't believe in being at a woman's mercy. Because the woman may say, and in that video clip, I don't have that clip, but it's on some show called Married to Medicine. When the going gets tough, if a woman sacrificed for you based off, we live off of her income, more often than not, now I don't have data to back this up, but just from what I've been told by other people, you will always be reminded how she sacrificed for you. On the TV show The Game, when it was on the CW and then later moved to BET, what did Melanie, who was played by Tia Mowry, and Derwin Davis, who was played by Pooch Hall, what did Melanie always say when she got back? Derwin, I gave my life for you. I gave up Johns Hopkins Medical School. I gave to whatever medical school she enrolled into. I came behind you because you got drafted to be a San Diego Sabre. That's what she always threw in his face when she got mad. I made all these sacrifices, and you can't make one sacrifice for me. But yes, it's always.
It's not a sacrifice if you need to throw it in the person's face because you're upset.
Right.
It's not a sacrifice. Sacrifice is something which are born from the fires of circumstance. And that means that it's done, and it's done. We've marked it as a witness in time. We're witnesses to this event in time, and we leave it there as a marker of one of the foundation stones of a relationship. That's actually what that's supposed to be. Just like my circumstance right now, I've had to sacrifice a lot of time, to hustle for my family. And, we were talking about it earlier when we first met today. And, they've sacrificed, my consorts have sacrificed their time as well. And we all acknowledge that, but we keep it moving. And we know that it's part of life. When we have to be very realistic and of course you're realistic, but a lot of people who want to have these discussions about the gender war, it's very unrealistic. You mentioned something too about, I think you were saying something. Oh, you mentioned about the 50-50 again and the power that a woman may have, like if she makes more money. You mentioned that earlier. I wanted to comment on that if I could.
Go ahead.
So again, traditionally, when a woman joins a man, she's supposed to bring wealth with her. Even in the case where he may present a bride price to the family, she is supposed to bring some type of wealth from the family or from her own to him, not just skill. We're talking about tangibles. We're talking about land. We're talking about a house. We're talking about some type of maybe some currency that was saved. We're talking about like fiat currency she may have stored. But the family is supposed to make sure that man has something so that they are not starting from ground zero. As a matter of fact, I received just one of my consorts. When I got her 48 hours after I met their family, they gave me a plot of land.
Wow.
To build a house on. I didn't have to pay for that. See, so I went from not being wealthy to getting a good woman. She's got a lot of tangible skills, okay? And she's got she's got a great spirit about her, but I also got something tangible. The father actually took me to the plot of land. He walked it off. And get this, witness is part of something that will solve the whole gender war thing. But we don't do that with the father because the fathers act as a witness, so does the rest of the family. So there were about a dozen family members from little children all the way up to some elders. 12, maybe 15 of us went out to this part of the land. He walked it off and he said, Hondo, you can have this right here. You can build a house right here. And that house is only going to cost me about $800 to build.
And that's smart because other countries have a lower cost of living. And when you think about, and this period off of Nicole Michelle was saying, when she was somebody, Nicole puts the tools out there for the woman to be empowered. And it's up to the men to kind of empower other men on the post. Because I always believe men should empower men, women should empower women. Because after a while, women don't want to, a man can't tell a woman about carrying a baby and ovulation and all that, just like woman can't talk about a man's erection and his prostate. But I say all that because you have to determine the type of life that you're going to live. There are some men that want to live a rural lifestyle. They want to have hogs, cows, and cabbage, fields of cabbage and onions and squash. And it's up to the woman to say if she wants that lifestyle. If you want to be in Beverly Hills or Rodeo Drive, then you need to find a man who that's what he wants. But that's what they call it being equally yoked. That term, even though it's a religious term, makes a lot of sense. Because a lot of people are just, you want the sexiness of Rodeo Drive from the guy who lives in the hood apartment. That you feel, and that's when we start getting to this whole dating potential and all this type of jazz that you hear a lot of, to where people have to say, oh, you never asked someone what your first date. Yes, you do. Because sometimes when you meet her father or her family, you find out, yes, we do have these days, and we said you have a business, and sometimes the father will be the co-signer of the business. Sometimes, I help co-sign the business, and so that way you get a loan to level up this business so they can do more.
Well, see, you keep coming back to that point, which is great, because you have to talk with fathers. And
right.
Didn't we say earlier how men like us, we're not afraid to talk to a woman's father? But a lot of women are like, my dad's so strict, he's old school, I'm like, listen, if a father doesn't want me to take his daughter, I'm okay with that. I'm not going to talk bad about that family. That's his decision to make at the final. Now, if he says, oh, we've met, we've talked, I'm going to leave it up to my daughter, which has happened to me before, and the daughter still wanted me. She still wanted to be with me, but she waited until her elder spoke. Yeah. See that what you're talking about, what I'm talking about in our examples, keeps going back to patriarchy. We have to go and talk with the fathers, because this also prevents a hit being put out on you by these families.
Yep.
Because you go to some places, this is why I don't like tourism. Okay. Most tourism is actually very racist and it's actually very invasive to the families of that particular society. And I got a book on that too, by the way, coming. But anyway, you go in and you say have sex with the daughter. Of course, it's going to be her choice too to have sex with you. But remember, she ain't in charge. The fathers need to be keeping their women in check. Okay, I see it in the Philippines. You see it in other places like Thailand. It's very heavy there. Cambodia to an extent, lesser extent than in Thailand and the Philippines. But the going into sleep with a woman, then you try to meet her father 6 months later, 2 years later. You are asking for your life to be ended swiftly, because they have a right to, because they're probably going to check their daughter if she's living with them, or she's living someplace nearby where they're close. They have a right to come and get you.
Yeah, and they do, because that's where that protection comes from. That's why the daughters can't in marriage. That's why the man has to get on his knees.
It's expected that you lead the woman, not the other way around. That's one reason why the men of the family will come get you. Just to give you an example, I was in San Diego. I was on the bus, right? I was on the trolley. This is years. I think it was like in 2005. So I'm in San Diego and I'm talking to an Ethiopian sister, and of course, I'm flirting with this sister, whatever. And she said, no. She said, no. She said, American men have too many diseases. And then she showed me a picture of her sister with a white American male, right? And she said, you see this guy? She said, she's been with him for a while, but my family doesn't know. She said, if my family knew she was with this guy, they would get on all of them, all the men in the family, cousins, uncles, brothers, the father would get on a plane. They would come out here and they would kill that man. I said, wait, you mean that literally, or you just being, you exaggerating? She said, no. I mean, they would literally get on a plane and come here and they would slaughter them. I said, now why is it? She said, because we marry our own. She said he doesn't have a right to come in. And then the sister, she even acknowledged that her sister was rebelling against the family's order and structure. Remember, this is her boyfriend. It wasn't like a guy she at least went off and she got married. This is just some dudes that she's having sex with.
And that happens a lot.
Because it causes trouble.
It does, because I remember years ago, I was 18 at the time. I was in the young lady back in high school, better off the internet. This is back in the 90s. So you remember the movie You Got Mail? Remember that back in the day we all had AOL. There was no Facebook. College Club was just a thing.
Man, he said College Club. That's way back.
Black Voices.
I remember.
Then Black Voices separately became AOL. So we've been around for a while. The Black Planet was the Facebook. It became MySpace. But so I remember. So I met this young lady. We started dating and everything. And we were cyber dating. And no, we was 16, 17. I was a year older. I was 16, she was 15. And, her father didn't let her date. So every time we went out the house, she had to say she was going out with one of her girls. Then I go pick her up. That's why I started driving my late grandmother's car. My grandfather died later that year, 2000. So I would pick her up. Then, of course, the curfew at the time was I had to bring my grandmother's car back because she was working at my uncle's restaurant, the restaurant she co-owned. So I remember I just got tired of the bullshit that girl kept putting my girl through. So I said, I'm ready to meet your father. And he was like, oh, man, of course, like we said earlier, my dad's strict, my dad a fool, my dad says some stuff to make you cry. I'm like, I'm Richard Huff's grandchild. Richard Huff said, if I could survive living with Richard Huff all my life, I could survive his dad.
But see, that's the thing. When you're raised by men, I told you my mom was with a married man after my parents split. About a year after I told you that story, I told some of my audience the same story. She was with a married man for most of my childhood. That man had a wife and 7 children. He was with my mom. We all went to the same church for years. Right. So, but I was still always around the men in my family. And I come from a military family, military and police. OK, so that strictness and just no, this is the way it is. This is what you do, the rules, things like that. That's why I don't tolerate that, if anything else in my household. But we're used to being around men like that. Yeah. So we don't bristle when a girl tells us, oh, well, my father's strict. We looking at her like, okay, he's supposed to be strict. Like, what else is he supposed to be? Like, we don't care because we're the same way and our elders were the same way.
And I had one of my play cousins that showed me, okay, I said, I'm about to meet this girl's dad. So this is my first time ever meeting a father. Mm-hmm. So those little boys said, okay, you got that little poor-neck look. So I had on this little polo shirt, little stripe there. Of course, like something you could wear today. Mm-hmm. I had on some nice designer jeans shorts. And this is my first time I ever put on a pair of slide sandals. So don't get you a pair of slide sandals. You can put the socks with so low stuff because I want you to really have my glasses. I said, I want you to have your haircut. Mm-hmm. So you can go there.
Yeah, you need a proper presentation. It's politics. We talk about everything.
So I walked in there. So this is my first. I'm just sitting there and stuff here. So I'm not used to my feet being shown. Now I love wearing these things. I wear them all the time now. So I'm sitting here. I walked up to his house. I said, what you do? You give the girl the flower. Like you walk in there, you look him in the eye. First, you bring 2 sets of flowers. They say there's balls in there. You give the mama the flowers first. Then you give her the flowers.
Never heard that. That's interesting. So that's very interesting.
I said,
you got to butter them up, right?
Butter them up. So they said, oh, you must be down there. I said, yes. I said, yes. I said, you must be. I said, I should be this. I said, how you doing, Mrs. Davis? And I said, I come with a present, and I brought something for brought a sweet something as well. Pops wasn't at the door. So her homegirls there was like, oh, this is going to be ugly. So Pops was sitting in the back at the kitchen table at the house. They have a little old 1950 style house.
Right.
So I'm all prepared for the worst there. So I sit there and walk in there and I said, how you doing, Mr. Davis? I just walked there and said, how you doing? Put my hand out there. And he said, I'm doing great. It's like he was kind of felt disowned. I guess he thought I was gonna be
right. Yep.
Like, fuck that, like, how you doing?
Real sheepish. You want this girl, man, go get her.
I want this girl. So I'm like, the most this man can do is say, I don't like you, get the fuck out of my house. Okay, fine. Right. What I'm gonna do, sit there and argue? I'm in this man's house. This man probably got at her brother's basement. That's his daughter. What I'm gonna do? I'm on some other man's property. If I was the one there, showed my ass and told my folks that my folks said, well, you should have got your ass whooped. That was that man's property. You gonna go in there and show your ass like that? It wasn't like you was in danger. It wasn't like they drug you off the street. You came to the place that was invited. You was rejected. You gonna go there and show your ass. So we talked and everything. So He said, I can think you're a studious young man, you know, how you're dressed and everything. Like they got you a belt on, you smell good and stuff. So your name is Dominique? I said, yes, sir, it is. And so where you go to school at, where you meet my daughter at, and all that, you know, all the questions. I answered all the questions, told them what I'm doing, what I want to do with my license. I said, I have a job, it's got my license, this and the third. Said, okay. So I had to go outside with him. So I'm thinking, I was joking. I said, well, it's nice meeting you.
So I got a little spook. He had you shook for
me. So I was like, it's all because he had no emotion the whole time. I said, I guess I failed. So we went outside. He put his hand on his back like this. Said, son, I know it's the 2000. I know it's 2000 and things have changed, but I want you to be honest with me. I'm like, okay. And you made up my door. I said, yes, I'm going to be honest. He said, have you ever had sex with my daughter? I said, no, sir. I said, I want to leave high school as a virgin. I said, I've not had sex with your daughter. And he knew I was telling the truth. I was like,
Right, yeah.
Because
when you start stuttering, they know you lying.
You know, he said, well,
they know you lying.
He said, I really like you. Because I know she's had boyfriends before, but they didn't have no balls to come meet me. But I was told that you wanted to come meet me. And I admire that. Ballsy, gutsy, gave my wife some flowers in front of me. I was like, oh, this little son of a bitch want to come in here and take over.
He probably didn't even give his wife flowers. So he like, wait a minute.
And I said, Mr. Davis, I guess it's with friends now. I got an extra basket of flowers in the car. You want to say that from her? He said, yeah, I like that. I like how you think. So I went back to the car and everything. Mm-hmm. I said, oh, Mrs. Davis, I got something eager to come meet you all. You know, your husband had told me to stop by because I talked to him on the phone before I came while we set this meeting up to bring your flowers too. So these are from him. So that worked. I met her dad. This was some white woman.
And then, now with this first story you just told us, how did that go? Did you end up, you had his daughter? I mean,
yeah, I had his daughter.
So he said, oh, yes, you can date my daughter.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, and then there's some things that, you know, you got to kind of keep with the little persona. And so we had dinner. And of course,
but that's the point. Yeah. See, you bring up that's a great point.
Yeah.
It creates in the young man or in any man accountability. So now you got to keep those receipts. You can't just be out there. Even if you start off at the beginning, you was giving them a little fluff. The whole point of that is to make you stay up here. That's the whole point.
Because the brother that sat there just all quiet, he was like, shit. It's like we're just sitting, me and Dad sitting here at the table. Uh-huh. You know, everybody kind of sitting there. You know, I guess they all knew that I was sitting there. You know, and it's true. So, you know, I got you sitting in one of my favorite chairs. So you know, I must like you. I don't really let nobody sit in my chairs that you know didn't come that you know that they have my last name. Yeah. That's a privilege that everybody don't get, and it can be revoked as well. And you know, he said, well, that's just lay down some rules. He said she has a curfew. She needs to be brought home at 11 o'clock, not 11:01, not 11:05. I don't care if you're an hour away. You better leave at 10 o'clock because she got to be here on time. Things happen, you call, let me know. You know, you are a man. I expect accountability and responsibility from you. If she's late, you do not drop her off and tell her to come in there. You park the car. You come up here and you explain to me what happened. But I understand things happen. So I remember one time we went to a movie, you know, got caught in a late movie. And I called her the vet, said, hey, Mr. Davis, you know, I had to work today, so our date started late. And there's a movie that Sunita really wanted to go see. I think it was Love Basketball, whatever it was at that time. Really dangerous story. And I said, I do want to make sure that she eats before she comes back home, what have so you and Mrs. Davis don't have to run feeding her. He said, good, I like that. See, you were taking responsibility and, you know, making sure that she eats before she come home. But I always believe a woman should never go out with a man and come home hungry unless she simply did not like the food that was there. That was different. But at least you were making sure that she was fed. He said, okay, cool. What time the movie be over? So it started at 10:30. I guess 1,000. She was all scared. So he said, about 1 o'clock, and then you all go to a 24-hour eatery. And he said, that's cool. So I see y'all. So that's fine. So then you got your key. I'm not gonna put the top lock on. But I'll tell you this. She needs to come home and don't think because it's a late date that you can pull this all nighter or what have you.
Be out in the woods somewhere.
Out in the woods and whatnot. Because I don't know how y'all do it over there in Fulton County. So he's the cab, the South cab. So So I said that's cool. Don't let the son beat you home.
Hey, and when the father says that, that's what he means too.
Yeah,
because he gonna come after you.
Yeah,
you know and you probably understood. I was like, yeah, I need to get her home before dawn.
Yeah, and, for me to let her, because me and her dated off and on for several years. There's things that ended up working out. Her maturity level just wasn't there, and I kind of felt embarrassed that I went there and slayed the dragon we called your daddy, and I didn't. And still, but I met other fathers before.
You at least followed the procedure, because any results from you following the procedure, that's for you to deal with at that juncture. Yeah. But at least you did it, because you could have had so much trouble along the way if you hadn't done it. See what I'm saying? A lot of times, I mentioned the attitude of the women. Most of the time, a woman ain't gonna have too much attitude for you if you talk with her dad, because her dad doesn't want her giving you any problems. Because that's an embarrassment to him. That's like, oh, this dude don't know how to raise no children. Yeah. You see, so that's one reason why. I mean, I was taught when I was coming up, son, when you start dating, don't you ever in your life. I mean, it was like a very real threat. Don't you ever in your life ever take a woman out and you ain't talk to her family?
Oh yeah, because
so I still do that to this day.
And that's how I was when even I may have dated before I got to meet the dad, because I know in modern day times it's kind of been tweaked to where if it's serious, let's meet the parents. Because I understand that, and I get that. That's why I tell you sometimes.
Actually, I do it all the time. Yeah. I do it all the time because it still prevents a lot of problems. I mean, we can get into that, I guess, later.
That's gonna be a good part too, because I know I'll try to keep these we're over an hour mark now, so I try to keep these videos at least an hour and some change. Right. But that's definitely a continued series about meeting fathers, about what needs to happen. Daughters, we'll talk about when you meet mothers, what needs to happen on your end. Some things that we'll give you some game on as well. We hope women will tell you some things that you need to do. Yeah. But the whole thing about it, I tell you, when you put on that persona, like I said, a lot of these guys go put on a shirt, tie, meet the guy, but guess what? He's gonna expect to see that every time you see him. I want something casual to where, okay, I guess I'm about to wear these. So this guy's like, no, I'm about to wear these damn sandals every time I go out with her. So the guy told us, bro, look, you're a man now. You gotta have more than sneakers than your father, bro. You gotta really diversify your gear.
Yeah, we do. We gotta get into that one day too, the dress code. I actually got that in my book. My book I talk about, when you because it's politics. How politics in economic warfare, or in economic terms in general, is just when it's the way you present yourself to the world. Yeah. Okay. Again, we talked about staying in shape, eating properly, things like that, because it allows you to present a healthy picture of who you are to women and their families. Yeah. They want to know you're healthy. I know where I have my consorts in the Philippines. They appreciate a man who's healthy. They really appreciate it. And they remark on it.
And that's what they want to see. They want to see a confident man, a man who has stamina, and they don't want to be that they outlived you by 30 years. No one wants to do that.
Exactly.
Maybe 5 or 7, but no one wants to outlive you by decades. Whereas her life started over yet again. She had life without you, a life with you. Now she's got a bunch of years left without you. But that's our time, people. We'll keep this at an hour. We're going to start doing more videos. So if would you like what you see, please comment below. Thumbs up the video, share it. You can contact me directly at editor@dominiquemag.com. That's editor@dominiquemag.com. Visit us at dominiquemag.com, your magazine for the modern, traditional, and urban Black man. I change the slogan all the time. We're going to get it together and we'll call ourselves. How can they find out about you? Website, socials, yada, yada.
You can find my book, The Polygamous Papers, An Introduction to Polygamous Culture and Its Principles, Pitfalls, and Ethics. And Amazon has got 55 reviews as of this afternoon.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's got a 4.8 out of 5-star rating. So wow. It's doing very well. I'm in the top 10 on books on that subject. Nonfiction, I'm in the top 10. I believe, in fact, I'm in the top 5, if I'm not mistaken. As far as the rating is concerned, I'm somewhere in that range. I have a sequel coming called Polygamy as Economic Warfare, a dossier on family, rule, and government. That debuts later this year. I will keep you all posted. You can find me on Instagram. Just hit the follow button. You can drop me a note there as well. I'm also on Facebook. Just type in my name, Hondo, Hondo, Solomon, like the king, Solomon. And let me know that you saw me on Brother Dominique Huff's show, and I will know exactly how to respond to you. And I definitely appreciate you, brother, for having me on.
I appreciate it as well. This will be our last time doing this, because we want to have the conversation that nobody else is steering to have from the male point of view, male-centered, male-focused, unapologetically male. That's what Dominique Magazine is all about. Until next time, I'm Dominique Huff. Remember, fellas, follow and chase your dreams, not chase pussy. Until next time.